these non-executive director awards. I think you saw the exciting ones last year. My name is Fiona Wall. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the League of East African Directors, and I bring you greetings from the board and management of LEAD. Online, I also want to recognize our coordinator, Ivan Kalema. Thank you so much for being here and for making this happen, you and your team. Behind the scenes, I want to recognize our board members. I don't know, I can't see the online ones right now, but I want to recognize our chairperson, Miss Gertrude Wamala, all the way from Kenya, our other board members, Ms. Ruchira Chakravarti from India, Ms. Lumonya Olive, we have Mr. James Onyoyin, Dr. Robin Kibuuka, who's in the house with us today, and we also have Mr. Stephen Mukasa, and of course, last but probably very best, Mr. Chimboa, our mentor and expert on board governance. So Peter Chimboa. So today in the house, we have, for our conversations, we have none other than the League of East African board member, Dr. Robin Kibuuka, and I'll just introduce him before he comes on board. But I also want to first also state that we also have Ms. Aida Mugisha Chitaka in the room. I'd like them to first say a hello before I proceed to introduce them. Hello, Dr. Robin and Aida. How are you?
Hello, Fiona. How are you today?
Hello, Fiona, and you?
Thank you. Aida?
Hello, Fiona. Good afternoon, and our listeners. Excited to have this conversation.
Okay. Okay, I think there were greetings. I'm not sure that, sorry, I think there was something with my, but I want to welcome you. Now I want to introduce the two. Dr. Robin Kibuuka has over 30 years experience at the International Monetary Fund, where he's worked at the executive board of the institution and in other several departments, including the African Human Resources, Fiscal Affairs, Western Hemisphere, and Statistics. He also served as the IMF resident representative in Ghana and retired in 2009 as an advisor in the statistics department. Dr. Kibuuka, who has extensive international experience with macroeconomic policy, also has taught at Harvard University. Today we are being taught by Harvard, ladies and gentlemen, and Macquarie Universities, and he's worked as a research assistant at the Yale Economic Growth Center. We are in the presence of royalty. Dr. Kibuuka also holds a PhD in economics from Harvard University. He's not a medical doctor, and a Bachelor of Arts in economics from Yale University. He has also authored a number of publications in the areas of statistics, macro management, and governance. He has consulted in areas of development policy, statistics, and most recently with the African Development Bank and the United Nations Development Program in designing and updating fiscal roadmaps. But he is also currently the board director at Mobi Clinic, which is a health services provider startup. And he is the board director of the League of East African Directors. But you must have known by now that he is also a former board chairman of the Standard Chartered Bank Board, and he's also a former board chairman of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics Board. We are in the presence of royalty. Welcome with me, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Robin Kibuuka. Robin, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Fiona.
I'm trying to sort out my sound issue here, and Robin, maybe you can speak.
Can you hear me? Fiona, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much for the kind introduction. And I am very honored to be part of this webinar. And thank you all viewers for coming to participate. We look forward to this discussion this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. With us in the house, we have Ms. Aida Mugisha Kitaka, and Ms. Aida Mugisha is a certified chartered accountant and a seasoned risk management professional. In the banking industry. She's proficient in creating a wide range of financial solutions for individuals, corporations, and sovereign entities. Since 2003, she has focused on assessing and arranging financial solutions for a wide range of clientele in both the commercial and development finance segments. She's done this over a diverse sector coverage, including trade and commerce, oil and gas, aviation, infrastructure, agribusiness, real estate, education, services, etc. Currently, she is a senior credit analyst, Trade and Development Bank. Before this, she served as the chief internal auditor of the same bank, Trade and Development Bank. And I'm also happy to say that much as she is going to be giving us the operations side of the business, she is also a board director, a board trustee of the Provident Fund of the Trade and Development Bank, and she's serving in the capacity of chair of the Finance Committee. Ms. Aida, you're very, very welcome. Please say hello to your people.
Thank you very much, Fiona. I'm glad to be here. I will make a few corrections about what I've done or what I'm hoping to do. I'm actually on the council of the Institute of Corporate Governance of Uganda, where I'm chairing the Finance and Administration Committee. And at Trade and Development Bank, I'm a senior risk analyst. And I also serve as a trustee on the Provident Fund of the bank. So I'm so glad to be here and to be part of this conversation. Really looking forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aida, for that correction. It's been noted. So let's dive into it right now. I wanted to start with Dr. Robin. You have held very many lofty positions, and my question is, did you just pop out of maybe school and get onto boards? I know that, yes, you've served in the IMF for a very long time. Just, give us a little bit of your journey so that everybody out there understands, we call it the meat of who Dr. Robin Kibuuka is. What has been your journey like, let's say, from operations to governance?
Thank you, Fiona. My journey has been quite interesting. When I graduated from graduate school, I went directly to the IMF. And my first 2 years, I worked at the executive board of the International Monetary Fund. Usually you don't start off working at the board, but it had its advantages. One, it's an excellent board. And I think if you really want to understand governance, it provides excellent teaching forum. Now, also the board is a resident board, and the directors are executive directors. So that means the board is a bit more operational than a typical board. And I spent there 2.5 years. And what I came away with was a very good overview, a broader perspective of what the International Monetary Fund does. And when I joined the staff, I already had this, I think, huge advantage that I had seen the institution from a very broader range. Anyhow, I joined the staff, and over several years, I was promoted and eventually became a mission chief. And that, I must say, is one of the greatest privileges in the International Monetary Fund, because you go out there to lead missions. You lead a team of people in the field, typically for 2 to 3 weeks, and you either undertake what they call surveillance, basically collecting information and coming back to the headquarters, writing a paper to update the information on the country's economy. And all countries in the fund have to consult with management once a year. That's how the IMF collects data on all of the countries in the world. But most interesting also was to lead negotiation missions when countries had requested financing assistance. So that required for you to be prepared you prepared a brief, you went in the field, you negotiated with the authorities. And my experience at the board was extremely useful because I could guide the country authorities through some, delicate issues. Typically, I don't want to get into great details, but let's say you are negotiating a program and one of the donors, let's say EU, which has many countries, there are some sticky issues. You have to advise the authorities that they have to be careful the way they handle some issues. Because at that time, the EU had like 8 board members, and it was going to be difficult to take a program through the board unless they work closely with these authorities. At the same time, you would help them to approach the EU in a way that was more constructive for their own benefits. For example, in one case, I encouraged the authorities to get a local economist to help the EU at headquarters understand the local issues much more effectively. So I thought that the experience at the board came very, very handy. Anyhow, I remained on management in the IMF until I retired in 2009. Then I came to Uganda. And my experience so far has been mostly focused on governance, including leading several boards, but also teaching at Strathmore University, where I was able to use my knowledge to teach and research. And I must say that was extremely rewarding because it totally enriched what I was doing. At the board, I started off with our Standard Chartered Bank, and that's a private sector organization with an excellent governance framework. It's supported by locally, but also by the group. And you also have a very strong regulator. So those forces force the institution to develop and have a very, very strong governance framework. The beauty of that was that the technical aspects, scheduling, minutes, board documents, they were prepared at very high standards and delivered very much on a timely basis. So if you will, that freed me to focus more on the more critical issues of governance. And by that, I mean the relationship among board members. So that is very, very important. And I think, as we'll be discussing, the soft skills become very, very critical to running an effective board. So Standard Chartered was excellent because I could then focus more on the soft skills. But also there were quite a number of advantages I got there. One was I had one of the best mentors I could have ever had, and that was Professor James Murwana. James Murwana was a very talented man in the sense that he really had a very, very high emotional intelligence. And particularly, he was a man with a very, very advanced level of empathy. I don't think he ever met anybody he did not think he could help. So he really went out of the way to help a lot of people. And that, to me, that is a very, very important issue, because empathy is a major, major issue if you want to be able to relate to others, understand their feelings, and be able to work with them and relate to them in a way that will be meaningful to them. The other advantage I had at Standard Chartered Bank was the IT developments. And we introduced the digital banking after about 3 years of preparation. And there was an enormous learning process. Of course, we had our own doubts whether it would work for the older clients, but I was assured that it was important to try it out and really be able to attract young, maybe millennials and others. Anyhow, I went on to UBOS, which is a public institution. And that was very different because you had a lot of politics, directors appointed by ministers, you have no say in it. And also you have the oversight by Parliament. I remember going to Parliament a couple of times, and boy, that was a wake-up call, because they were really very political, and you just could not answer or deal with them on technical issues. So those are very important issues you have to deal with in a public institution. But one advantage there was that it's a data institution, and data has now become the new oil. And what I found there was that the institution, being a public institution, did not have the resources and had not really prepared itself for the risks it faced regarding data collection, data dissemination, and data storage. So I used my skills and experience at the bank, Standard Chartered Bank, where, as you know, in financial institutions, the risk is a major central issue. And the risk framework is extremely robust and well developed. So we took lessons from the bank and developed a brand new risk framework for UBOS so that the institution could understand the risks it faced with data management, data dissemination. So we introduced it, and I think that was a major achievement. But importantly also, risk is very important in terms of auditing, because all the audit reports will then reflect the amount of risk for the institution. And for the board, that's extremely important, because as you review the audit reports, you can pinpoint where the problem, the greatest risks are, and where those centers are, and the people who are involved in that. So as a board, you can prioritize areas where you face the greatest risk. I then moved on, simultaneously to Namulondo Investment, which is a Buganda Kingdom company. So it was a combination of private sector.
Smart 24, driving business.
Luxury redefined at Seasand Hotel as you indulge in the splendor of elegant living fit for the royalty that you are. Step into comfort, pampering and blissful customer-centric service as you select from our range of comfy, exquisite living quarters furnished to meet with your royal preference. Surrounded by scenic beauty,